Good morning. It's Monday, the 13th of January. I'm Mark Broome at ARIRANG's News Centre in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines at this hour. Seoul and Washington's $866 million defense cost-sharing deal, praised by both governments, is likely to face a tough political battle to win approval from Korea's National Assembly. A leading doctors' association has vowed to go on an all-out strike on March 3rd if the government pushes ahead with its plan to allow telemedicine and for-profit medical subsidiaries. Plus, a deal for Iran to freeze parts of its nuclear program in return for sanctions relief will take effect on January 20th. Wrapping up months of negotiations, Korea and the United States have finally agreed to a new cost-sharing agreement for the stationing of US troops in Korea. Shin Se-min reports.
South Korea says it'll pay $866 million to the United States this year to keep American troops on the Korean peninsula. The Foreign Ministry says the allies struck a deal Saturday to share the cost of stationing 28,500 US troops in the south.
The outcome ensures a stable condition for U.S. troops stationed in Korea and is a fair sum to be paid by the Korean government. We reached what we think is a figure that is acceptable to the National Assembly and the people.
The two sides settled for a 5.8% increase, which is up $47 million from last year's special measures agreement. The increased rate has worried some who say the defense costs may exceed 1 trillion won or $940 million by 2017. Under the deal effective through 2018, the annual rate of increase in Seoul's share will be tallied with the application of the Consumer Price Index, but will not exceed more than 4%. Washington has also agreed to enhance transparency in how it uses Seoul's money. It'll send reports to the Korean government detailing where the money is being spent. The new contract will also improve the welfare and well-being of Koreans working for the U.S. military in Korea. Seoul's foreign ministry says the new deal was a good deal for the country as Washington had been pushing for nearly $895 million. While the ruling Saenuri Party welcomes the outcome, the main opposition Democratic Party is not impressed. It says the deal was poorly executed and a signed deal might not face an easy ride in Parliament, where it still needs to be approved. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
The United States has cut back on its ballistic submarine patrols over the years, but well over half are still positioned in the Pacific Ocean, which includes the waters near the Korean Peninsula. In their latest report on Washington's nuclear power, experts Hans Christiansen and Robert Norris say 14 submarines with ballistic missile capability are deployed in the Pacific and Atlantic for nuclear deterrence patrols. 4 to 5 of those are on hard alert standby for immediate attack. They say Washington is keenly aware of the possibility of nuclear war with countries like North Korea and China. Amid the backdrop of tension and uncertainty on the Korean Peninsula, South Korea's military has been placing extra emphasis on being combat ready to face any threat from North Korea. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports on winter training exercises underway on the outskirts of Korea's Olympic town of Pyeongchang.
지금 남북 관계는 그 어느 때보다 엄중한 상황입니다. 작년에 북한은 3차 핵실험을 감행하고 전쟁 위협을 서슴지 않았습니다. 그리고 최근 장성택 처형 등으로 더욱 예측 불가능하게 되었습니다.
It goes without saying that maintaining a staunch defense against possible North Korean provocations is one of the Park Geun-hye administration's key goals this year and the remaining years of her term thereafter. And the president has made it clear that strengthening national security is very high on her agenda. To ensure readiness, the Defense Ministry initiated a winter exercise last week in Pyeongchang-gun, Gangwon-do Province, a place well known for its brutally cold winters, where temperatures regularly plunge below -20 degrees Celsius.
Scores of Special Forces cadets are busy training despite the bone-chillingly cold temperatures. It's a clear display of South Korea's military might and readiness to fight off any attack from the north.
But it's just another day for South Korea's special forces. Whether it's blistering hot or numbingly cold, these men are ready to fight and successfully carry out their missions.
To successfully conduct our missions in extreme conditions, we are enhancing our combat capabilities through realistic training.
They showed off numerous maneuvers, with cadets skiing down slopes, sniping down potential enemies, while reaching their targets undetected. These types of training exercises are held throughout the nation periodically. They serve two purposes: ensuring complete military readiness to potential threats, and giving the public the peace of mind that the military can keep them safe from an unpredictable northern neighbor. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News, Pyeongchang.
Korea has demanded Japan clarify media reports that say Tokyo is looking to require middle and high school texts refer to Korea's Dokdo Islets as Japanese territory. Summoning a deputy chief for the Japanese embassy in Seoul Sunday, the Korean Foreign Ministry said that if the reports are true, Tokyo must call off its plans immediately, accusing Tokyo of instilling a wrong historical perspective into future generations. The ministry says it will not sit back and watch Japan's provocative acts regarding Korean territory. On Saturday, Japanese media reported the government may soon revise guidelines to have school texts claim Korea illegally occupied Dokdo and that there's no territorial dispute over the Senkaku or Diaoyu Islands in the East China Sea, which China claims is theirs. Korea's state-owned firms will be forced to downsize welfare benefits given to their employees as the government pushes to tackle the reckless management of public enterprises. In the government's new guidelines, the so-called progressive retirement annuity system that pays more pension the longer a person worked for the company is to be put to an end. The same goes for childcare and college tuition support. The state-run firms will also be banned from giving interest-free mortgages to their employees. Against public backlash concerning public entities mounting debt and lax management, the government has pledged to clamp down on these organisations to see their debts reduced. A powerful doctors' association has warned it is ready to go on general strike in March to protest government policies to introduce for-profit hospitals and telemedicine services. Park Ji-won tells us more.
The Korean Medical Association, which boasts some 90,000 doctors as its members, says it will go on general strike starting March 3rd unless the government changes plans to establish for-profit hospitals and telemedicine services.
The association opposes the government's drive towards telemedicine and for-profit hospitals and demands a fundamental reform of the nation's health insurance system.
However, the Doctors Association is open to dialogue.
Depending on the negotiations with the government, the strike could be delayed, according to an emergency planning committee.
The Health Ministry has also shown a willingness to start talks with the association.
The government respects the Medical Association's decision to defer the general strike and engage in dialogue through a consultative group. The government will enter talks with an open mind.
The situation was sparked when the government put ads in newspapers last week promoting the advantages of telemedicine services and for-profit hospitals. The Medical Association is strongly opposed to both, saying they will impair the quality of medical services for citizens. In its statement, the Doctors Association said the telemedicine program has never been fully tested in Korea, and it is not yet a reliable way to make a diagnosis. The Medical Association also said the government is misleading citizens, disguising the establishment of for-profit hospitals as if it is an investment measure for mid-sized hospitals when it is actually aiming to establish for-profit hospitals. In response, the Health Ministry said the teleconsultations are mostly aimed at low-risk patients and those who live in remote areas where visiting doctors is not easy. The government also said the for-profit hospitals will be allowed to run additional projects like attracting patients from other countries, which will not affect the public nature of the medical service in Korea. The government has been pushing for the establishment of both, along with other deregulating measures, as a means to expand the nation's medical industry. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Archbishop Andrew Yom-Soo-jong will become the third ever Korean to be appointed a cardinal, following Stephen Kim-Soo-hwan and Nicholas Jong-Jin-sok. Why was Yom chosen? Kwon-soo has more on his background.
More than half of his life, Archbishop Yeom Soo-jung has devoted himself to religion. He is not only currently the de facto leader of the Korean Catholic Church, but was appointed a cardinal by Pope Francis on Sunday at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. Yeom was born into and raised by a highly religious family. 3 out of 6 children, including the to-be cardinal himself, became priests. He graduated from the Catholic University of Korea in 1970, was ordained as a priest in the same year, and was appointed as the 14th Catholic Archbishop of Seoul by Pope Benedict XVI in 2012. Yeom also serves as chairman of the Catholic television channel Peace Broadcasting Corporation and continues the Pabo Nanum or Fools Sharing Foundation of late Cardinal Stephen Kim Soo-hwan. Religious leaders in Korea welcomed the Pope's choice and expressed hope Korea's church will contribute to the Asian as well as the global Catholic community. 18 others will join Yeom as a cardinal too. They come from 15 different locations, including Italy, Germany, Britain, Brazil, and the Philippines. The decision on archbishops from Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Haiti, which marked its 4th anniversary of a deadly earthquake, reflect Pope Francis' commitment to the poor. Meanwhile, 16 out of the 19 are under 80 years, making them eligible to vote for the next pope. Andrew Yeom Soo-jung is 70 years old. He will be officially appointed as a cardinal on February 22nd. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
An interim nuclear deal between Iran and 6 world powers will start on January 20th. Under the terms of the agreement, which was agreed in November, Iran will see some sanctions suspended as soon as the deal takes effect. Tehran has agreed to halt enrichment of uranium above 5% purity and neutralize its stockpile of near 20% enriched uranium. The deal gives world powers and Tehran 6 months to agree a complete end to a standoff that has raised the risk of a wider Middle East war. US President Barack Obama welcomed the news, but US Secretary of State John Kerry cautioned that the next stage in negotiations would be very difficult. The EU's foreign policy chief Catherine Ashton said the world powers will ask the International Atomic Energy Agency to verify the deal's implementation. Israelis are paying their last respects to Ariel Sharon, the former prime minister who died over the weekend after spending 8 years in a coma. While the international community remembers Sharon's leadership, Palestinians express no sorrow for the man whom they call a war criminal. Kim Min-ji reports.
Former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon died at the age of 85 on Saturday after 8 years in a coma caused by a stroke he suffered at the pinnacle of his political power. Thousands of Israelis bid farewell to the former leader on Sunday at Israel's parliament, the Knesset, where Sharon's coffin draped in the blue and white national flag lay in state. Sharon, who was prime minister from 2001 to 2006, was one of Israel's most influential and controversial figures. He was a hero to many Israelis for his leadership during wars, while he earned the name Butcher of Beirut in the Arab world after he led Israel's invasion of Lebanon in 1982. Nevertheless, in a surprise move in 2005, Sharon withdrew troops and settlers from Gaza under a policy of disengagement from conflict and a pursuit of dialogue to advance peace with the Palestinians. Some experts say the Israel-Palestinian conflict would look very different today had Sharon stayed in office. Israel's current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed sorrow over Sharon's death, adding the former leader will live forever in the nation's heart.
The people of Israel bow their heads for the departure of Ariel Sharon, the former prime minister. Arik was first and foremost a warrior and a brave commander.
The international community also mourned Sharon's death. U.S. President Barack Obama sent his condolences, saying Sharon had dedicated his life to Israel. British Prime Minister David Cameron paid tribute to the brave and controversial decisions Sharon had taken to achieve peace. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said Sharon was a hero to his people and called on Israel to build on the late Prime Minister's legacy. Palestinians, however, expressed their joy over the news of Sharon's death, calling him a criminal. Sharon's funeral will take place on Monday. World leaders, including U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, will be in attendance. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Thailand is bracing for mass anti-government protests on this Monday, which aim to shut down the capital and force Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra from office. The army and police have expressed concern there will be an escalation of violence that could potentially lead to a coup attempt. Protesters say they want to shut down Bangkok, end parliamentary rule and abort February elections in which Shinawatra's ruling party is almost certain to win. Bangkok has swung into lockdown mode to prepare. Police units among the 15,000 officers that will be deployed have been stationed at the main international airport in the city. Hundreds of schools in the capital have cancelled classes and major retailers are stocking up on essential supplies. Korea is facing its coldest temperatures of the winter season, with the mercury again plunging to -10 degrees in some parts of the country on this Monday. And as millions of households nationwide turn to their thermostats for warmth, demand for electricity has surged to fresh highs. Our Paulie reports.
Here at the Korea Power Exchange's main control center, power levels across the country are being closely monitored as a recent cold snap has pushed up the use of electricity. But officials say concerns of a possible power shortage have eased, with the resumption of normal operations at 2 nuclear power plants.
Power demand increased by 2.5 million kilowatts due to the sudden cold. Fortunately, there wasn't a problem with reserve power due to the Shinggori-1 and Shinwolseong-1 nuclear reactors.
However, Korea's power demand remains sensitive to sharp declines in temperature. According to the state power distributor, a 1-degree drop in temperatures outside translates to an increase of about 500,000 to 800,000 kilowatts in heating power consumption. And as temperatures dropped to below -10 degrees this week, national power use reached nearly 76 million kilowatts. That marks the highest figure since the government enacted measures last month to stabilize power reserve levels. Compared to last year, the nation's power situation is in better shape despite the sudden jump in demand. Nationwide power usage is forecast to reach a seasonal peak of 80 million kilowatts by the end of this month. But power authorities expect backup power to maintain stable levels even in the event of another nuclear reactor shutdown. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
The Winter Olympic Games will take place in the Korean resort town of Pyeongchang in 2018. To ensure the Games run without a hitch and the area spurs regional development after the sporting event, the government recently announced plans to invest over $3 billion into the region. Son Jung-in reports.
The Korean government has big plans for the Olympic town of Pyeongchang in Gangwon-do province. The local commission in charge of supporting the 2018 Winter Games held a meeting this past Friday, where it unveiled a comprehensive plan to invest $3.1 billion into the town and its surrounding areas over the next 2 decades. At the meeting, Prime Minister Chung Hong-won stressed the importance of preventing any waste in resources after the international event wraps up.
This plan for a special Olympic district will play a role in hosting a successful competition and also act as a comprehensive blueprint to link regional development after the Games.
The large-scale development plan will cover some 40 projects, with most of the investments to be used during the period running up to Winter Games. Pyeongchang will be designated a special district spanning more than 27 square kilometers, which will be divided into 5 special zones based on their regional features. The main Olympic zone will act as a hub for regional development, while other areas such as Cheongsan will be featured as an eco-friendly tourist destination. The long-term focus will be on sustainable regional growth, with the creation of various sports facilities, as well as expanded public infrastructure and transportation networks. The Korea Research Institute for Human Settlements expects the ambitious plan to generate nearly $10 billion in gross regional product and create over 260,000 jobs by 2032. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
And a A good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the recent press conference with the legendary head coach Gus Hiddink. Now, after getting a surgery on his knee, the 67-year-old spoke in front of the press with Lee Young-pyo as his interpreter. Now, on Sunday, with some of his former players behind him, Hiddink stated that manager Hong Myung-bo is a worthy head coach for the national team and that he's a proven coach. When asked about the upcoming 2014 World Cup in Brazil, the 2002 national team head coach stated that although Group H might seem like an easy group, Russia and Belgium is very talented and that Algeria is a very underrated team. Now, he added that the Korean team should play very aggressively on the offense during the upcoming World Cup. Well, if you thought the recent success of South Korea's bobsleigh team was a fluke, think again. This time, the Koreans won gold in the four-person bobsleigh event. With the 7th round of the America Cup taking place in Lake Placid, U.S., the team of Won Yun-jong, Seo Kyung-jin, Jung Jung-min, and Seo Young-woo finished with a combined time of 1 minute 53.52 seconds to win Korea's first ever four-person bobsleigh gold. With the gold medal finish, Korea will earn a ticket to the upcoming Sochi Winter Olympics. And taking a look at some Sunday's KBL action, the KT Sonic Boom cruised past Wonju Dongbu Promi with the final set score of 81-67. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the other games that took place, starting off with the Seoul SK Knights taking on Anyang KGC. Now, first quarter of the game led by Oh Se-gun, 6 points in the quarter. KGC takes a slim 21-19 lead before outscoring them 23-20 in the second quarter, take a 44-39 lead going into halftime. Meanwhile, in the second half of the game, SK tried to rally back in this game, and in the fourth quarter, Aaron Haynes lights it up for the SK Knights, but the rally is cut short as KGC hangs on to take this game 83-79. And moving on, the Incheon Itilan Elephants taking on the Seoul Samsung Thunder's first quarter. Lee Dong-jun puts up 6 points in the quarter as Samsung takes a nice 18-10 lead. But the second quarter, a different story as Ricardo Pao tears it up with 12 points in the quarter as Incheon outscores Samsung 30-14 as they rally back, take a 40-32 lead going into halftime. Incheon's leads get bigger and bigger in the third quarter of the game, but Jasper Johnson trying to get Samsung back in the game, lights it up with 12 points, but the rally is cut short as Incheon takes this game 75-70, your final score. And finishing things off with some Sunday's V-League action, the IBK Altos easily beat the struggling Hyundai Hillstate in straight sets, 3-0 over on the women's side. We won an epic match between the Hyundai Capital Skywalkers and the KEPCO Vicstorm, so let's take a look at the highlights. Now, first set, Hyundai being Hyundai cruised through with the final set score of 25-21 thanks to Liberman Algomez's offense and defense. But all of a sudden, KEPCO answers back with Chung Kwang-in tearing it up on the court, take the next two sets, 25-23 and 25-18. KEPCO one win away from an upset win here, but the Skywalkers hang on to take the fourth set 30-28. And the fifth set, thanks to Liberman Algomez and his 45 attack points on the day, the Hyundai Capital Skywalkers take the set 15-13 and the match 3-2. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And time now to check in on the weather conditions in Korea and around the world. And that's all for now. Have a fabulous rest of the day, and we do hope to see you back again for our next newscast, which is coming up at noon Korea time.